Hey guys, today I'm going to do a comparison on my Tesla Model 3 compared to my WRX STI and Civic to see how much cost savings there is when you actually buy a Model 3. So if you're interested, stay tuned. Hey guys, so like I said, I did a comparison. So I did basically a whole 4-year comparison. So all these charges you see on the screen here are all by year, and I'm assuming that you drive 15,000 miles a year on whatever car you have. I also didn't include upfront costs. So basically, I didn't include my car payment each month for the Tesla because we're already not comparing apples to apples. We're comparing a 12-year-old car in the Civic and a 14-year-old car, 12-year-old car in the WRX and a 14-year-old car in the Civic. So obviously there's a lot of things that probably aren't going to really compare apple to apple. Two big ones being insurance and your registration, because those are really based on how old your car is. And so basically we're not really comparing apples to apples, but I think this analysis will show you that it's kind of worth it to get a Model 3 or a electric car in general. Once you pay the upfront costs, then you'll see that it's actually quite worth it. Also keep in mind that every car varies, and so the more expensive car you buy, say like a BMW or a Mercedes or whatever, the more you're going to save because obviously you're paying more for everything. So for whatever reason, German cars in particular seem to have very expensive maintenance. I don't know why that is. I just feel like German engineers or whatever, German car companies feel like people who buy German cars are rich or something, so they just gouge you on everything. So anyway, obviously we're not comparing that. I'm comparing my two Japanese cars, so it should be more of a typical person type analysis. So just to recap, the car I bought was the mid-range rear-wheel drive car, which was basically, when I bought it in December, it was the cheapest one available, 260-mile range and not too badly expensive. So let's go through this whole thing. So basically, like I said, I did it by year. And so, obviously if you're going to be charging from home, which I think a lot of people will be, you're going to need to get a 240 volt plug installed. And so for me, that only cost me $500. And that's because the plug location is basically directly under my breaker box. So that just happened to be a coincidence. So, for you, it might be $1,000. It could be more. So I guess I got kind of lucky in that sense. I only had to pay $500. Insurance, as I've mentioned in another video, I think my insurance for my Tesla is actually kind of expensive, and I could probably get a cheaper price if I search around, but I have a lot of other policies, and so I'll do that in October when our policies, when they expire. So basically that it's $1,400. The STI, when I had it, this last go around was $1,000. And then the Civic we have is $850 for insurance. Registration is $561. The Model 3 is $161 and $144 for the Civic. Oil changes, obviously you don't need to get any for an electric car. What I did is I did $40 per oil change, and so times 3, so at $15,000 a year. I always change my oil every 5,000 miles, so that's where you get the 3. So 3 times a year, so it's $120. Tire rotation, I normally do it at 10,000 miles, and that's like $20. It's pretty cheap. So I did, $20 times 1.5, so every, year and a half. And then the electricity piece, in another video that I did on efficiency analysis, my efficiency was about 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour. And so I'm using that times what I have for PG&E on my EV rate, which is 13 cents a kilowatt hour. So that comes out to be, when you bring in the 15,000, it comes out to be $433 a year. For the gas prices right now for premium, so the STI takes premium, it's about $3.69 a gallon, and that car gets horrible gas mileage. It gets like 21, and that's being generous for that car. So obviously by 15,000 miles, that's $2,600. The Civic is a little bit better, a lot better in gas mileage and cheaper because you don't need premium. So it's about $3.59 for regular right now and 35 miles a gallon, so that's about $1,500. So if you take all those charges, all those expenses in year 1, the Model 3 costs just under $3,000. The STI costs almost $4,000, and then the Civic costs $2,600. So you'll see that in year one, you're saving over $1,000 on the Model 3, and then because of this, basically it's because of this, the Charger, the upfront cost, you're losing $242 if you're going to compare it to the Civic, which again is a really old car, so a lot of these things, especially these two, are really cheap. So if we go to year two now, actually let me back up a second here. So for electricity, through PG&E I get 13 cents a kilowatt hour, but that is going to vary obviously, where you live. It could be even cheaper than that. And actually for me personally right now, I haven't paid for energy in a month because there's actually free chargers that are literally at my work. So this for me actually is really zero. And I can, it's at work, so it's not like I'm quitting my job anytime soon. So this is really going to be zero. So I'm not even going to include that, but keep that in mind that this could be a lot cheaper because you can potentially get free energy. Whereas gas, you can't go to gas stations and say, give me free gas. That's never going to work. So that's one bonus that you have by buying an EV car. So if we go to year two, it's pretty much the same thing. Insurance, registration, oil change, your tire rotations, electricity is going to be the same. But for gas cars, there's also usually a 30K tune-up, which is going to include your transmission fluid, your brake fluid, air filters usually. Usually it's going to include your coolant change too, so things like that. So me just being a car guy and having a lot of experience doing this type of stuff, that type of major tune is what it's called, is usually about $350. So that's what I'm putting in here for both the STI and the Civic. And so if you look at that in total for year two, the Model 3 costs you $2,400, the STI costs you $4,200, and the Civic costs you $3,000. So in year two, you're saving almost $1,900 versus the STI, and you're saving $600 versus the Civic. So if we go to year three, nothing much happens in year three. Your 30,000 to 45,000 miles of driving, insurance, registration, oil, tire rotation, and then your gas, electricity. So 2,300, 39, almost 4,000, and 2,600. So versus the STI, you're saving another $1,500. And versus Civic, you're saving another $300. Now, year four is where it gets a little interesting because now the car is getting a little bit older and there's more maintenance and things that you need to do. So in year four, you've got your normal insurance and registration. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention on the insurance. So you'll see each year the insurance goes down a little bit. So what I did is, normally as your car gets older, for the most part, your registration should go down a little bit. Usually as the car gets older, your registration goes down a little bit. So what I did is each year I just subtracted 5%. So you go back up here, 561 times 95%, so minus 5%, minus another 5%, and then this year four is another 5%. So that's just, it's all relative anyways because all of them are the same. So 5% each year. So in year four, registration, your oil change is still the same. Tire rotation, electricity, gas. You have another 30K tunes. That's another $350 that you don't have to pay with an EV. Your brake pads and your rotors are probably going to be pretty much dead by then, but this also depends on how you drive. So brake pads and rotors usually cost about $200-ish. And these prices I've come up with are basically if you're to take it to a shop. Like normally for my ICE cars, I would do all this stuff myself. So this would be a lot cheaper for me, but I'm trying to make it general for everybody. So anyways, it'd probably be about $200 to change your brakes and rotors at a shop. You're going to need new tires. You might even need those sooner. 60K is quite a few miles for tires. So that's, about $400 for a pair. Or for a set. It could be more. Obviously it depends what kind of tires you buy and all that stuff. So, but tires are tires. That's going to be a wash for every car. You're going to probably need a new battery for your ICE car. Batteries tend to last 4 to 5 years at the most these days, which is kind of weird. They used to last longer, but that's not how it is anymore. Battery is about $120, and usually you can get that free install if you buy them from AutoZone or O'Reilly's or whatever. They'll usually put it in for free for you. And then, of course, maintenance for the Tesla. I actually couldn't find an actual number online for the Model 3. If you go to Tesla's website, it tells you to go into your account and it should be there, but I clicked every link in my account and I did not see any type of maintenance thing. So this 850 I'm borrowing from the Frugal Tesla guy. If you've seen his videos, he was able to find an actual number, but this 850 I think is actually for the Model S. And so, you know, I'm just going to assume it's going to be the same or pretty close, because really all they do for this 4-year maintenance for Tesla is change your brake fluid and change your battery coolant. And then they do the multi-point inspection, blah, 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 all that stuff, which would be the same thing as your 30K tune for your ICE cars. So $850 for the Tesla in year 4, which is, it's every 4 years or 50,000 miles. So actually for me, I feel like that's actually kind of expensive, considering they're really only doing 2 things, which brake fluid is actually really easy to do. And then I wouldn't touch the battery coolant because I don't want to ruin the main heart of the car. But anyways, so that's all the expenses you'd have in year 4. And so subtotal $3,500, STI is almost $5,000, and your Civic is $3,700. So you're saving $1,400 versus the STI and $141 versus the Civic. So some other things that are gonna creep up on you as the cars get older is your timing belt and your water pump. You're gonna have to do that at $105K, and that's obviously only for your ICE car. So that's going to cost you about $1,000. It's a pretty expensive install because you're going to do that, the timing belt, water pump, and the auxiliary belts that help run the timing belt. So that's pretty expensive. And at some point, you're probably going to have to change your clutch if you drive a stick. And even if you drive an automatic, it has a torque converter in there, which could die as well. Or maybe your tranny itself just dies after a while. And so that's, like, I called a couple shops. I did the clutch on my Civic last May, and it cost, well, I did it myself, so it was like $300, which is awesome. But I called some shops, and the shops gave me quotes at $1,800 and $2,400. So I just put $2,000 as kind of your roundabout, average cost. So that's some of the things that could impact you in the future. But for now, if you don't include that, if you just include the 4 years worth of expense, your Model 3 is going to cost you $11,000, the STI is going to be $17,000, and the Civic is going to be $12,000. So if you just include just the 4 years, that's it. With the Model 3, you're saving, versus STI, you're saving almost $6,000, and the Civic, you're saving almost $1,000. So that's, STI is kind of an expensive car. This is more like your regular car, so that's still not a bad number for just driving around a car. And we're not comparing apples to apples. Remember, the Model 3 is more expensive in a lot of areas like insurance and registration. So even with not comparing apples to apples, you're still saving almost $1,000 over 4 years, which is not bad at all. So if we include some other stuff like the timing belt, water pump, and the clutch, that's, same $11,000 as there is none in your EV. That's going to be $20,000 and $15,000 in your Civic. So that means you're saving almost $9,000 versus Civic, and almost $9,000 for the STI, almost $4,000 for the Civic. So that's a huge savings. And some other things that I was thinking about too is, since you have an electric motor, that motor only has 1 gear, which means that the fluid in there doesn't need to be changed for like a really long time. So in comparison to your transmission in a ICE car, which has 5, 6, maybe 7 gears that are always changing, that fluid is going to get wore out real quick. And that's why you need to change it every 30,000 miles in here. But basically that's going to mean all those gears are going to be moving all the time, which means that's just, bad things can happen, Your tranny could break, which could be in this area as time goes on and your car gets older. And so, if you've got 1 gear, well, it's probably not going to break because it's not switching gears all the time. It's just running by itself. So that's another big expense that could hit you at some point. And I know you're thinking about battery degradation, which is a good point. But if you take care of your battery and don't, mess with it too much and abuse it, these batteries should last you 15 years or more, which is pretty much, if you're keeping your car for 15 years, you're getting pretty good ROI on it. I tend to keep my Model 3 for a really long time, so I'm not too worried about it, as long as you don't abuse the battery. Like, don't charge it to 100%, or don't drain it all the way to like 5 miles, or like a couple percent, because that's just not going to do you any good. So you have to take care of the battery, but it's not too hard to do. Just be mindful of actually taking care of it, and you should be good. Another thing I wanted to mention too is that don't forget that gassing up your car takes time. yeah, maybe you commute and you have to gas up maybe once or twice a week. And so that's going to be at least 5 minutes, probably closer to 10 every time you gas up. Whereas if you have your Model 3 and that's an EV, it takes you 5 seconds to plug it in your garage. So that's going to be a lot of time that you're saving plugging it in at your house. You never have to get gas. You never have to go actually look for gas. You just drive home and you have a fully charged car every morning if you want. And my example is only on 15,000 miles. So I wouldn't say it's modest per se for a normal driver, but there are plenty of drivers that drive more than 15,000 miles a year. That's not me. I don't really drive that much, but like I said, there's a lot of people. So the more miles you drive, that means the faster your car is going to depreciate and the faster your car is going to deteriorate as well in terms of maintenance. So that means that's going to accelerate all the maintenance things that you need to do if you drive more per year, which I feel like is going to impact you more if you have an ICE car over your EV. So some other things I was thinking about that's in this category also that's going to impact your ICE car over your EV is hopefully your tranny doesn't die, but if you're able to put 200,000-300,000 miles on your ICE car, there's probably a good chance your transmission is not going to be working, or it's going to be not working very well. So that's something you might have to think about. That one would be really expensive. You might as well buy a new car at that point. There could be that. Your catalytic converter, which is something you don't have in your EV car because it has no emissions for the most part, besides the coal energy. But you have solar or wind energy, then you have literally zero emissions. But your catalytic converter, those things tend to clog pretty easily after 200,000, 150,000 miles. So that's probably something you're going to have to change at some point. Your O2 sensors will probably die. I've had to change both of them on my Civic already. And lucky for me, the STI didn't drive around very much, so I didn't have to change those. Your motor mounts are going to break at some point. My Civic right now has 183,000 miles on it. I've already changed, when I did the clutch last May, I changed all 4 of the motor mounts as well, just because they were making all sorts of noise and they were all broken. So that's something you're definitely going to have to change, which you don't have in an EV because you don't have a motor. So that's nice. That's more savings to your EV car. Your head gasket could break, which that one would be a really expensive install too, because you have to take the head off the car, and it's really all labor. The actual head gasket I think only costs probably $15-20, but it's all labor to literally tear your engine apart to get to that head gasket. Your radiator and your thermostat, which is going to be in this area sometime, will definitely die at some point if you have an ICE car. Lucky for me, I haven't had to change it on this Civic yet, but I had an old Accord that I changed it on twice. So I think that install is probably around $300 with labor. So that's going to be another one you're going to have to change at some point. And so those are just kind of some of the things I was thinking about when I was doing this analysis. As you can see, I still think that buying an EV is going to save you a lot of money in the long run, as you can see with these two. Even with the Civic, that's quite a bit cheaper, and not comparing apples to apples, you're still saving a pretty good amount of money. So you guys seeing how much money that you can save, especially if you buy a standard version. So if you buy a standard version, obviously it's not going to be as much upfront cost as my mid-range, or if you bought a long range or performance. So that means that's going to be more savings for you. Does this analysis make it worth it for you to buy a Model 3, knowing what the upfront costs are going to be? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.